Hello and welcome again to another podcast episode from the Voice of the Marketplace. I am your host for today's show. My name is Eromina Okwuzigwu, and with me today again, I have two very fantastic tribe members, um, all the way from South Africa, all the way from Ghana. We're just in different time zones, but we just find a way to hop on these topics because we know that there are souls out there that are thirsty for word that needs some thirst quenching, and we thank God that we are vessels in his hands, and we're from the tribe of marketplace ministers. And with me this on this episode today, I have Na, all the way from Ghana, and I have Mr. Oluwatoyin Uncle T, as we call him in the tribe. Yes, he's speaking from you all the way from South Africa. So just unmute and say hi, guys.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah. So today we're talking on the topic faith and fertility. Faith and fertility. It's a very deep topic, if you ask me, because faith and fertility, they're like two parallel lines. Fertility and faith, they actually are made for one and the same thing. One cannot exist without the other. You can't, the Bible says in the word, if thou serve me, I will bless thy bread and thy water. That's Exodus chapter 26, 23, 25 to 26. I will bless thy bread and thy water. I will take sicknesses and diseases away from thee. None shall be barren in the land, nor shall thou cast thy young. It's a covenant. There's a part we can play, and there's a part God has to play. If we serve, he will bless. Faith cometh by hearing the voice of the word of God. And it has to go with works. So you have to work that faith out. You have to serve. But it has to come from a heart of genuinity. And then he will fulfill his own promise. Today, we're looking at fertility concerning faith. Faith concerning fertility. I don't know how to separate both, but two of them, they are two standalone topics. And um we're looking at those people that are trying to conceive. Fertility is the ability to reproduce, the ability to have offsprings of the same race, like both for animals, both for humans, every living thing that God created, has the ability to procreate, the ability to reproduce. And that fertility factor we are looking at how it relates to our faith in God. So, Uncle Tosin, please, are you going to help us to, start to dice this salad because it's a very delicate food we're going to cook this evening? So, please, what do you think about that? Is it stigma? Let me start from the stigma. A couple, they've been married for a couple of years, maybe 3 or 4 years. Like, I'm in the fertility industry. I work with an IVF clinic, and we define infertility as the inability for a couple to achieve a viable pregnancy after 1 year of constant, continuous sexual intercourse. And constant continuous, starting from like at least 3 to 4 times in a week, and they've not been able to achieve a viable pregnancy. That's how we define infertility. So what do you have to chip in about that stigma? You are a man, you have a wife, and you have friends, you've encountered people that have been through fertility challenges, trying to conceive, TCC couples. I would speak my own part from the clinical aspect because we see them almost every day on the trade. So what do you have to say? What's peculiar about them? What what ticks them?
Thank you so much, Madam Eromina. It's a pleasure to be here once again. And this topic is one that happens to be quite um, dear to me as well because it's also a bit personal. Personal in the sense that after my wife and I got married, we waited for about 2 years, I think, um, before we had our first child. So I know someone out there may be thinking, oh, just 2 years. Do you know how many years I've been waiting? But I'll tell you something. Those 2 years felt a lot more. Um, it felt a lot more because what usually then happens is that after every time that my wife saw her period, it was, I can tell you that those days after that happened, it was tough. So what usually happens in a typical African home is that when a couple get married, almost immediately after, everybody's sort of, asking prodding questions. Okay, so where is the, okay, so I hope you guys are not, it'll first be indirect, and then after a while it becomes very direct, like, okay, what's going on and things like that. It is a stigma in a sense because people attach everything else. It looks like you failed as human beings when you can't produce a child after a period of having been married. People equate your a successful marriage to the ability of you know and the funny thing is that it's often, very often, before anybody has a chance to check even what the medical issues could be, or everybody just automatically assumes that the problem is the woman. You know how there's just a very subtle, okay, so what's going on? And I'll tell you something. Like I said, those first 2 years were tough, were something else. And for people who I used to always tell my wife when we got married that it would be great to, just be you and myself for a while. Let's do everything. People always say that when the kids start coming, it changes everything. And then, we joke about it. But it very quickly moved on from, trying to just be you and your spouse to then getting nervous, getting anxious. All right, so it's 6 months after, is 8 months after, is 1 year after, is 1 year and a half, and stuff like that. And it just feels like there's something you're doing wrong, like your body is failing you. It feels like you're not a complete human being. It feels that there's everything going wrong. It feels like, your body's not doing what it's supposed to do. And then when you go out there, you see people ask questions like, okay, so when will I start to see the grandchildren, or when will you guys start to produce this, or when, and all of that doesn't when you go outside and people make those, whether it's indirect or direct comments, you sort of laugh it off, you shrug it off, you act as if it's not getting to you, but inside you, you're literally dying. And then when you also, because as human beings, until you get to a point where you understand that your journey is unique, it's very easy for you to just compare yourself. Typically, when you get married, it's not just you. You probably have some friends also getting married around the same period, So maybe you get married in a certain month. So you have some other friends who got married a month before you or some months after you and stuff like that. Then, boom, before you know it, it's 1 year. Within that 1 year, there's babies popping all over the place. And before you know it, even people you've, the funny thing is that there are people you've not kept in touch with, and then all of a sudden maybe the news that first comes to you, maybe on social media or stuff, or someone else's comment, that's
Exactly.
just what announces those people, not their marriages. The funny thing, because what I've realized is sometimes those things you're trusting God for then look like God is answering other people. At some point, is you not getting married, right? And then you see that happening, and then after that, it's then the babies. All of a sudden, you go to places your eyes then gets focused on the fact that there's a child, like a couple is carrying it. You don't know their history or their story, but you just see the babies everywhere,
Exactly.
and then it looks like, there's something wrong. And like I said, this one is personal, and I'm happy to share as much as possible, because
Mm,
what I've realized is, whether from my experience or from experiences people that are also actually very close to me, there are a lot of parallels. But yes, to answer your question, yes, because even if your parents happen to be the most liberal or the most literate or the most whatever word it is that signifies, you won't get pressure from those things. And sometimes everything else fails, I'll tell you for free. Even when
mm,
there'll be days when you literally break down because, like I said, it's either something triggers it, like a woman seeing her period, or something else, just a random picture of a friend or just a random baby. You see all the very cute stuff and you just think, what is going on? And people will tell you to do all sorts of things in a bid to try and help you solve the problem. And
mm,
let me not unpack this thing too much. There's a lot to say here, Romina, but yes, the short answer is, there is definitely stigma associated
mm,
with it, because it feels
mm.
like your body has broken down, and in that infertile state or barren, you know it then looks like it's a label on top of your head. You know what I mean?
Mm,
You want to avoid functions where you have mates that you got married around the same time also showing up, because they're coming with their babies, and you don't have any
evidences.
right there and there.
Mm,
Evidence. You don't have any right there, so you avoid those kind of things. You also don't go
mm,
to places where people who maybe came to your wedding came for, because after a
mm,
year, next question they're asking you, so where are the babies? What's going on? I hope both
mm.
of you are not doing, those kind of things that you try and
Yeah,
shy away from, because it just robs you of your peace, and you just want to keep yourself in a
exactly.
place where
Some
you don't
are
get
actually
exposed
from a
to all
place of genuine care,
correct.
but as in, when it's you who is going through it, you don't want anybody to care about you. You don't, the pressure
Yeah.
is building up. You are questioning your faith, and that's the question I want to come to now. This question is going for now. How, I don't know if you've had friends or if you have a personal experience like Uncle T here, but I want to hear from a woman's side. How is it for a woman who is going through a fertility challenge to, like, does she still keep her altars? Is she still very, is she still very available, to pray how many times in a day, to serve God in a unit in her worship center? Is she able to do all that? I have a first-hand experience, but before I go into my own, I'm going to talk. I want Nat to give us her own insight. The woman, I want to hear from the woman angle now. How do you think fertility affects faith from a woman's angle? How is it that, because it can cause an attack, I know for sure. And I've seen somebody who just stopped praying altogether. If God wants to do it for me, let it do it for me. you know at some point she will still start again. I cannot live without God. Now please help me speak from the woman's angle. What do you think?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, this question or this topic is quite emotional. Um, for me, from a personal point of view or experience, let's say right after marriage, I had my first child, and after that, it took another 4 years. So between that
Hmm.
4 years, it wasn't like I was not. Can you hear me? It wasn't like I wasn't
Yes.
conceiving, but conceive and it passes away. So then it's like people started asking, why wouldn't I have a second child? And, sometimes I don't say anything. Sometimes I say, well, I'm trying, it's not coming. And with the prayer, I remember I always go to church and, they'll tell you, write your prayer request. Then I write, I want children, like I want two boys, or those things. And then I'll be writing them, hoping, believing, praying, and that it shall just come to pass. But I mean, every now and then, like my senior said, you have that your menses is coming, and then you are disappointed, you are discouraged, and you're asking God, why? Why is it that you cannot have it as easy as some people are having it? And so, yes, when it comes to faith, it strangles the faith a bit because, look, it's difficult. Actually, all your prayer point, if you should pray, is just on having a child, because there's so many thoughts running through your mind as an African woman. Because look, except you have a man that's totally 100% fears God, then there's that possibility of bringing in another child from somewhere you do not know. So, as a woman, all these thoughts, so many things run through your mind. And so you are just begging God to show forth. And yes, sometimes, because sometimes you get to your altar and there's tears all through, you don't get to even see the words, and probably you just say, God, I beg you, just give me a child. And it's sometimes very difficult when it comes to faith. Even church, sometimes even going to church becomes difficult because people are looking at you and people are asking. Sometimes even the pastor is like, are you not, like, what's happening? Because sometimes you don't get to share what you are going through. Okay. And like Uncle T shared, sometimes you feel incompetent. Like for me, the seed will come and then it will just pass away. So it's like my womb can't carry a baby. So God, really, my womb can't carry a baby. And it's like, how am I going to, like, how am I going to survive? So you have all these things going through your mind. And for me, I really always go to God, because I hardly have conversations with people and I don't say much. I mean, even though I was going through a lot of having a lot of miscarriages, I wasn't telling anybody. I mean, to a point that my own father comes and is like, what is happening? And so for him, I had to tell him, okay, this is what is happening. Then, he became a bit superstitious, saying all sort of things, which comes along with faith. But you just, as a child of God, I really didn't listen to what he was saying, because he was suggesting the other way around and trying to blame other people regards to the issue. But because of the faith I have in God, I it's dicey, truth be told. So at a point, I would say I'll just leave it. So whatever he wants to go and do, he should do. But I do not want to, get involved. I couldn't stand up to it and say, no, I don't want you to go to other stuff or go and do. I couldn't say that. I was just cool. Like, whatever you want to do, just do. I didn't say much, okay, but I wasn't following whatever he was saying, though, but kind of listening from his point. So faith, there's a bit of doubt here. It's a 50-50 deal now. You just, it's like you just want that child. And so whatever he wants to do for you to get that child, fine, whatever. It's the child you want. So it worries that faith bit, truth be told. And it's very emotional if you find yourself in that, because like Uncle T said, there was one time in that waiting period, I went to the mall and I met a friend whom I married before her. She'd had a first child, she's had a second child. Look, and she was pregnant. Just a mere sight of her, just seeing her from a distance, even before she could say hi, I just walked out of the mall. I just couldn't bear it. I'm like, how is she having two and on to three? And I'm just here. She just got married. And it really worries. And I have a friend who just has one child, and he has gone through it all to a point that, look, this is a pastor I'm talking about, to a point he even, we talk a lot. He suggested to me, like, he doesn't even mind if another man will take the wife so that the wife at least can have a child. This is a man. it worries the faith a lot. It takes somebody who really fear God, really, really depend on God to like say no, no, no to every thought, every, what everybody else is saying. So I know how it's not easy. And as for the altar, you keep it, but it's like doubt takes over sometimes. Negative thoughts runs through the mind, especially when you're seeing things going on. Maybe a junior sister of you probably overtakes you, three children at a go, and you're asking yourself, what is it? So, yes, for me, when it comes to faith, yes, it does. It worries us a lot. It does because most of the time when you go to your altar, it's tears all throughout, or questions all throughout, or complaints all throughout. And that is not what our altars should be.
Thank you
And
so much. I forgot to unmute my mic, and I like the fact that we all seem to have first-hand information on this topic because it's easy to drive home. It's easy to jump on it and see this is how it is. And okay, I want to look. I want to talk a bit on the technology part of fertility treatments. I, for one, I have worked with several fertility clinics, IVF centers in Lagos, in Asaba, in Abuja, and the constant thing is that the statistics show that infertility is 10% female factor. Sorry, 30%. 30% female factor is 30% male factor. Is 30% combined. Two of them. Either the man has sperm issues, the woman has tubal issues combined. And then there's that 10% chance of unexplained infertility. So it's the same as it is for the man's fault as it is for the woman's fault. I don't know if I'm making sense, but in Nigeria, West Africa, especially where I come from, once a couple have been married 1 year, 2 years, it's the woman they start to ask questions first. Ah, Mama, how far now? You fall sick, you'll be afraid to fall sick because the moment you just catch a fever, like, are you sure it's malaria? Abi, it's or malaria. I know. It's I know people firsthand, friends, family, you know, that have gone through or are currently going through this struggle. And I hope they get to watch this and, draw some sort of faith from our discussion today because really infertility strangles the faith a bit. You now ask yourself, am I not praying enough? We had one couple, one of the clinics I worked, the woman test, it turned out it was the man that he was firing blanks. There were no sperm cells in his semen analysis. The woman, I've never, when Jesus said, "What great faith!" When the centurion said, "You, I know you are I'm a commander. I can tell my servant to go here and go there, and he will listen." I believe that when you mentioned the word, my servant at home will be healed. When Jesus said, "I've never seen such great faith," that's how this woman's faith was. She said no, that even if it's one motile sperm, one that they see, that they did the test like 2 or 3 times, went to another center, tried doing the test, it was the same thing, zero sperm cells. So they tried to put the man on sperm boosters, and okay, they got like one. The woman said that one, they say no, the chances are low for us to use that one to fertilize the egg. They tried to cancel them to try to use a donor sperm, and it was a painful decision for the woman to accept. In fact, she said the donor sperm they wanted to use for her, they should mix it with her husband's sperm. That's the only way she will accept it. Honestly, that woman took him, and she was like, the embryos, the ones the one they okay, they fertilized some with her husband's sperm, they fertilized another with the donor sperm, and both embryos were doing well. There was just one embryo from the husband's sperm. She was like, transfer that one, transfer, add the two, that she knows that is the one that her husband, this is the one from her husband that will stay. And today they have a child. There's nothing you want to tell that woman today that is not her husband's baby that she has carried. She will never want to do a DNA test or anything. So the more medicine has advanced, it's now bringing a disparity to what faith really is. There's some denominations that don't accept fertility treatment, especially when it begins to tilt towards donor and surrogacy. But the truth of the matter is, there's a woman I know in one of the clinics too where I had worked. She had had 13 IVFs. 13 IVFs. An average for an IVF treatment today for one cycle is like from when they stimulate the woman to get her eggs, get the sperm, fertilize it, and then transfer the embryos. That's one cycle. An average for one cycle is like 1.3 million. Times that by 13. This woman had done 13. Apparently, she had it was her womb that wasn't getting fertilizing the eggs were had been fertilized, transferred, but she wasn't getting pregnant, so there was no implantation. Yeah, implantation failure all the while, and she had multiple fibroids, and she had gone through surgeries. And you know, when you have a surgery on the uterus, when it's healing, it will have scars, which can now make the uterus is supposed to be a hollow organ. And then when it's scarring, it now begins to lock. Something that is supposed to be like this is now healing like this. That alone can become a problem again, trying to conceive. So she just resorted that it was surrogacy that was going to be the best for her. And it was her eggs, it was her husband's sperm. And it was an Indian woman. She's a Nigerian. It was an Indian surrogate that she used that helped her carry that pregnancy. If you see those twins today, the tactic resemblance of the woman, the girl looks like the woman, the boy looks like her husband. If they don't tell you that this woman did not carry this pregnancy, you will not know. That's the fertility has really improved about technology and evolution, even adoption, the rate of adoption. I have a personal person in my life that has adopted. He married for like 2012 till now is how many years? That's like 12 years. 12 years, if I'm not mistaken. And after the first year, they kept trying and trying. They just advised him, see, just go and adopt. And if you want to adopt his son so that he can carry a family legacy. And they went for a baby. They actually nursed that baby from like maybe 2, 3 months. Today the boy is 7, I'll be 8 years. I believe yes, he's gonna be 7 this year. And if they don't tell you that they adopted this child, you won't know, because that person changed diapers. The child grew with them, and it's becoming widely accepted now. Alternative, they call them assisted reproductive techniques. Yeah, IVF, ICSI, IUI. There are some cases the man is okay, the woman is okay, but they're just not achieving pregnancy. Sometimes it's the body fluids of the woman that is not allowing the sperm to travel through the cervix into the uterus to go and get eggs fertilized. And it's a whole lot of science that I don't want to go into now, but I'm just trying to touch that angle that it's possible, especially in IVF centers where I work. Faith, we don't play with that faith. If you do not believe that your treatment will be successful, don't even try. Don't start it, because at the end of the day, it is still God that will breathe life into the embryos, that the embryologists are going to inject the sperm into the egg. It gets as bad as conventional IVF. You just put the sperm where the eggs are, the sperm will locate the eggs and fertilize it on their own. There are some really technical cases where the sperm has serious issues. There's a machine to pick the sperm up and inject it into the egg. You're helping it to fertilize the egg. And still at that, it's still God. The Bible says, I planted, Apollos watered. That was Paul in 2 Corinthians. He said, this one say, I follow Apollos. This one say, I follow Paul. This one, I follow Cephas. So what do you mean? Are they your God? Who is following Jesus? I planted, Apollos watered. Only God gives that increase. So I will never take the God factor out of advanced fertility treatments because he's still the one that gave man that knowledge. He's still the one that made man to advance in medicine so much that there is a way you can do it. A lot of people now are accepting fertility treatments. A lot of people. I know a lot of couples that they were like, why did I not find this earlier in my marriage? And luckily, God, God is a speed up God. You just do it. You do it the first time, you get twins. Some will even freeze their embryos after their first cycle. They come again, another twins. They have ended the call. Something that took others maybe a period of 5 or 6 years. In 4 years, they've gotten 4 children, and God has a way He does His things. So I'm of the opinion that people can actually seek fertility treatment help when if they can afford it, because these treatments are really expensive. They are really expensive. In fact, in many of the clinics we work, we have to open foundations where well-to-do people can donate towards helping families to achieve their goals of becoming a parent. So, Uncle T, this question is going to go back to you again. Um, this work, fertility work, can affect couples, that togetherness. In fact, when couples are trying to conceive, there's no longer romance in the marriage. I've seen it happen. You know, intercourse with their spouses is now like is very doctored. They're now looking at calendar. I'm ovulating today. Oh. I hope you'll be available. They start calling on phone. There's no flair anymore. There's no, oh, how you doing? How was your day? Nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. Whether your husband has eaten or has your wife even, honey, how was your day? Now how you would woo your woman, how far now, hey, what happened in the office today? All that gist, it goes away. Oh. It goes away when you are trying to conceive because everything now looks doctored, programmed. It must happen at some certain time. See, today is my day 14. I'm day 13. See, my test kit is showing that I'm already ovulating. Where are you? Where are you? There's no longer regard. There's no love. I want us to talk about that feeling when the two couples, how it affects their marriage, and what you think is best that they can do to, bring back that synergy, that love, that warmth, that romance, that spark, despite that challenge of infertility, and how they can, work in unity, because the Bible says two cannot work together except they agree. There's the man in one side thinking it's the woman's fault. There's the woman in one side thinking there's the man's fault. There's so many hanky panky. Somebody might not be telling the truth. The family of the man especially is going through the back and sending very sensitive messages to the woman and calling her a man. All those kind of things. What do you think couples can do to get out of that really choking time of their lives?
I think you've hit the nail on the head because it's a very trying period, and because of the nature of the thing, like it's literally in front of you, right? Even where you can convince yourselves that we have each other, that's all that matters. All you need to do is maybe just step outside, something will remind you of it, or even pick up your phone on the there's so many things that will remind you of the fact that, hey, by the way, we're still waiting for this. And I'm glad you mentioned the statistics a while back. And I want to open up and say something else in case there's someone who's watching this and just wants to, you know, completely understand that we that are talking about this is not some far-fetched idea, is reality. In our case, sometimes people say what you don't know doesn't kill you or stuff like that. But I don't agree. Instead of having resentment build on both sides, where the husband will think, oh, I'm fine, the problem is maybe it's her, or the wife will be thinking, oh, I'm okay, it is him. I think while they wait, it's also because whatever advancements we have in science or in technology, it is stuff that we have received by the hand of God. It is also inspiration from God. You have even godly men and women, people who have been inspired to make these things work, either as a science or as an innovation technology. So more than often, I strongly recommend that both of them get checked. I know the cases of some men who just absolutely fold their hands and ask the woman to go do, and the tests that the
Mm-hmm.
woman needs to do are very intrusive stuff. I
And then when
forget
they
the
come,
name.
when they finally drag themselves to the clinic, they are the problem.
Absolutely, you hit the nail on the head. My wife did her set of tests. She came out okay, and it was my turn. I didn't. It wasn't even a thing of, oh no, that I mean, yeah, let's do it. Because first and foremost, if she had to go through those tests, and a lot of those tests were intrusive, very, very intrusive stuff
Very,
that she
very,
do,
very,
come out
very
and feel
invasive.
feel very violated. You know what I mean?
Child.
And so I also went for it. If we're being completely honest, if you go to the hospital and you need to get your sperm, you need to find a way to get that out right there in the hospital. It's not a case of you can go home and come back the next day.
No.
It's only within a window within which that needs to. So you have to do it. So I then did it, and guess what? When the results came out, and then the doctor said that, well, sir, your it was something that had to do with motility of the sperms. It turned out to be my problem, you see.
Hmm.
And once that came up, I had to move from, and that's part of the reasons why I wanted to, be a part of this one, because men, you need to 100% be supportive. It's not just the woman who needs to do tests. You also need to put yourself up and get examined. In that
Hmm.
case, I forget exactly what he said, but it seemed, if I remember, this was how many years ago? Over about 11 years or 12 years ago, right? And then the doctor said that maybe something about motility, like it wasn't moving fast enough or something like that. And
Hmm.
maybe I forget the exact term, but the end game was that, okay, so it was me. And then he was saying, oh, well, it's not so much of an issue. We just need to change your diet or stuff like that. But, I stopped listening at the part where it first seemed like it was a death sentence, like, oh, this was all my fault and stuff like that. I had to
Hmm.
deal with the fact that that there was first that feeling of, like, man, like I failed. Like, there was all sorts of emotions that I had to navigate through. And then the doctor was saying, okay, we just need to change your diet and stuff. The funny thing, the same month where we did that test was the same month my wife got pregnant, either that same month or the very next month. The diet thing, I can't even remember if we saw it through or we didn't see it through. But you see, point taken. And that's what I'm trying to pass across here. First things first is that under no circumstances must the man and his wife allow themselves to be at the mercy of, we don't know what's going on. Do all the tests. Eliminate that
Hmm.
resentment that can build from not knowing where the issue is coming from.
Sure.
When you get to that point where you then know where the issue is coming from, at least you know where the issue is coming from. Yes, it may give room depending on how mature or they're, because it will be a test of their relationship. One thing I found is that these kind of situations either make or break the couple. Let's be completely honest. There's no middle ground. It'll either make them or it will break them. People who pass through this and navigate it successfully become better, closer, value. It's part of the things, water that has gone under the bridge, and it strengthens the union in a way that some other things cannot, because it's a true test of you being able to stick to each other when there were reasons why, people could say, okay, what is the alternative here? What else can we do about this? So that's the first thing. Find out where the issue is coming from. The second thing then is they need to find a way to shut out the noise. And this is tough. We live in a country or in a continent or in a culture sometimes where if they are not able to shut off the noise, especially from the man's side, if they're not able to shut off that noise, then it will destroy it. And when I say shut off, it
Mm,
means every single person who will come to say, "Oh, so your wife has a problem. Oh, so what are you going to do now? Oh, we're considering getting another person. Oh, have you thought about?" You need to find a way to protect your wife and insulate, keep an environment where she feels she's protected, not just feels as an emotion, where she can see that she's protected, where you literally are a wall
mm,
around her to make sure that you know what she will have episodes where she breaks down, where she remembers, where she's goes through all that emotions, but let it be in a safe space. If she has to deal with that and has to deal with your in-laws, your parents, and every other person who is also chipping away at her esteem, then what does she have? Nothing. It's not
mm.
words when
And
you
you're
say,
not
okay,
there to defend
I don't
her.
you have
Mm,
to defend her. You sometimes when people make those comments around, especially on your side, who say, we've not even seen our grandkids, you need to step in and up and tell them, well, when we're ready, you will see them. You need to speak up on her behalf because these things can shame her into submission, into silence, where she doesn't have a voice anymore. And people begin to pile up assumptions around assumptions and assumptions, and like I said, it's very easy for everybody to point to the woman and say this must be her. Who knows what she was doing before?
mm,
And all sorts
mm.
of stuff. People, the rumors come in, and before you know it, you've built a castle around stuff that is completely untrue.
True.
So how do they navigate this? There needs to be an anchor. The man and the woman alone are not strong enough to hold each other, even if that is required. But there needs to be an anchor. There needs to be something more than them that they believe. No matter how weak the altar is, or how inconsistent, or how difficult it must be to navigate to that place of prayer, they must anchor it against something. This is where you see other people go and consult other people, consult this man here, consult that other man
Mm,
there. Oh, this person says they should eat this, they should do. And it's very easy for them to get off a well-trodden path of faith and get into diabolical things. It's a very thin line.
very thin
Someone
line.
will recommend and say, "Oh, how about you do this? How about you do?" They need to agree with each other that, listen, we want a child, but there are some lines we will not cross.
Mm,
And these things need to be agreed upfront and consistently to remind each other there are some lines we will not cross. Need or wants,
mm,
especially when it comes to a child, things that are very deep like this, make you easily, without batting an eyelid, cross a line. So there needs
mm,
to be something that is an anchor for them. It may also help where they have a means to offload. These things pile up. When it builds up, it builds up, it builds up, and then one point it gets too much for either person or both of them, and people step out and do all sorts of crazy stuff. It's easy
mm,
on paper to say, I will never. But when some things push you and you have no structures around you to keep you in place and in time, people step out and do all sorts of stuff they will not be proud of.
mm,
So, one, they hold each other. One, they have an anchor. Three, mentorship or some older people, older couples, people who have sort of seen some of these things can also be a useful light in their
mm,
lives. Someone that can help them navigate to say, I know what you guys are going through. You know what? This is what you're going to do for the next 5 days. You know what? You guys take a break at this point. Just go off, go away from it all. You know what? Just give them things that will help them just sort of walk that path.
yeah.
So, but at the end of the day, I'll also say this, that at the end of the day, all they also have is each other. So it helps when that other person that you're in a relationship with, that you guys, there's also a friendship, underlying friendship. And I know what I'm saying, because things will pull you in separate directions. It also helps when
Mm.
there's some sort of, so at an underlying friendship,
You
people
start
marry for
hearing
various
friends. Are you
reasons.
sure he doesn't have children outside? Hmm,
Correct.
hmm,
People, things will push you, people will test you, people will say all sorts of stuff. But when there's that underlying, at the end of the day, we only have each other. Whatever it says, whether you go out and lock the door, you still come back and it's still both of you, and you're at peace with that
hmm.
fact. Then I think it also helps.
There's one point we didn't touch. I just remembered now. Holy Spirit, thank you for the reminder. You know, there's also this oh, you have only one set of gender of children. You want another gender. Oh, like I've had 3 girls, I want a boy. Or I've had, 4 boys, I want a girl. Ah, and a girl they take care of parents. So now woman they remember how. So if you never born woman, you never born no. Or in a very traditional setting. If you have not born man, in Nigeria, I'm talking about it happens mostly in this Africa. When you have not had a son, you're just giving birth to, especially in Igbo culture, first born girl, second born girl. They will say na pencil, then take write this one name for husband house. Your leg never stand. You are one leg in, one leg out. There's that also, you know. And what say you about couples that are trying to conceive for a particular gender? Truly, it can come from a place of genuine need. Oh, Father, I'm the only girl in my family. I want to also have a daughter. I want to bring up a woman of valor that will carry all these values that I know and have. Whether you like it or not, a boy is a boy, a girl is a girl. Gender, they are different. The way they are wired, they are different. The way they, even as I have a 3-year-old daughter, I have a 6-year-old son. As two of them are growing, the difference is very distinct. It's the girl that will come and tell you, "Oh, mommy, are you okay? Mommy, why are you shivering? Is your belly paining you? Mommy, do you want water?" The boy is, "Mommy, I want to go and watch TV." There, yes, there's time that he's caring, but the girl is the, you can see that nurturing ability from as little as they are. So what do you think? Is it too much to want another sex if you have just one particular sex of children? And because in IVF too, there's also an innovation for that, gender selection. You can do IVF with gender selection if you so wish. And so we try to pick at the ethics very gently in IVF. If there is no need for gender selection, we don't really advise it. But for a couple, especially Igbos, especially most of the couples that we have treated for gender selection have been Igbo men. They have 5 girls. They just do give us twins. We want twins. We want. I said, now God they give. We fit transfer 4 embryos. None of them will even work. You can transfer one and you will have two. You can. God is just, he works in mysterious ways. So is it too much to ask when you have one particular sex, maybe two, and you're looking for another one? What's your take on that?
It's interesting. I also think the bulk of it is also maybe an African issue. Um, it's not just Igbos, by the way. I think it may be prevalent, so maybe with good reason because you have data to back it up. But I also know that in Yoruba tribe as well, where I come from, I know there's also the you need a son to carry on the family name type of thing. And I also think sometimes all of this is what further um, there's a difference between the genders, no doubt. Um, I also think there's a fundamental problem with patriarchy. Um,
Mm,
and I'm saying this from seeing how, for instance, there may be a job or a position that is being advertised, and 9 out of 10 times it will go to a man. Um, and even where you have two colleagues in the same office, same position, the woman sometimes needs to do twice as much as the man to get recognition and to get promoted compared to the guy who there's the system can sometimes be engineered against women. And this is the reality. I'm not saying stuff that people shouldn't already know. And if they don't know, it's maybe because they've not been paying attention. And the reason why I'm approaching it from this angle is because, and it's easy for me to say because I'm a man. If I were a woman, it could be a case of this is bad belly or something like that. No, I'm saying it because I'm opening my eyes. And as a father of daughters, I have a son as well, by the way. But as a father of daughters as well, I realize that I also have a responsibility towards speaking against this type of things. You
Yeah.
want to make sure that under no circumstances do you raise lazy men, men who just think that by virtue of them being a man or having a specific type of organs or a specific kind of gender, then half of their job is done. All they need to do is show up.
Mm.
And then a woman now needs to put in additional effort in order to get the same reward or recognition, you know, by doing exactly the same thing or even doing better. So I think there's a premium, too much premium on that, and it's for the wrong reasons. This is why I'm saying that where a couple says, okay, I have 5 children, and then the man is insisting I must have a male, the question is why? What are your reasons? Is it so that when you go to some business related meetings or when you're in the company of your friends, you feel more of a man because you also have a son? And
Mm.
these are men who just want a male child, not because they then put the necessary investment into training that son to be responsible, to be useful to society, to respect women, but just having a son that's a bucket list ticked. And that's all. Abdicates the responsibility of raising a man that should actually play a key role, in society by virtue of being a man. And
Mm.
then you have men who completely abdicate their responsibilities in the house. And by virtue of, maybe places that we've lived and some of the things we've experienced, we've seen, and I don't want to mention the specific places, but we've seen places where men don't even take up any responsibility. The men in the
Mm.
households just get drunk, just do anything.
Especially
And it's the
that
women.
one that they looked for. They
Correct.
spoil. Ah,
Yes. You know, and they just, and then
he's the
it
only
boils
son.
down
And
to,
I'm the first
cor-
son. And I'm the only
correct.
son. Ah,
And because of that, the boy
raising
doesn't, he has
a
no
childhood.
entitled an inability to actually take care of himself, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
even someone that is not able to keep a place tidy, is not able to cook, is not able to do anything. I'm grateful for the kind of mother that I had, right? I was
Mm.
born in a family where I mean, eventually I was the only son. And then I was surrounded by women, 3 women, right? So there's 4 of us. First 2 females, myself, then the last one, another female. But my mom would always look at it from the point of, I will make sure you do not get spoiled. I will make sure you're not a spoiled brat.
So you
So
don't
it
become a
got
liability. My daughter-in-law
that
will
kind
not
of
be
thing.
insulting me instead of praying for me.
Correct. So she made sure that the fundamental things that one is supposed to be able to do, that I'm able to do those things. Because
Mm.
will the man now marry? Such a man will not marry another woman tomorrow with the sole intention of outsourcing every area of his life, the cooking, the washing, the cleaning, every single
Mm.
thing, just outsourcing it to, and then put his feet on the table and read the newspaper, and that's daddy. Such poor, piss poor, forgive me mentality, very irresponsible. And all for what? Because someone said they wanted a male child. And that one too tomorrow will say, I also want a male child to carry the family name.
Mm.
What family name?
Mm.
What is the value in that family name? What are the men of that family standing for? What exactly is their role to society? What are they training their own sons to be? What role models are they representing for their daughters to see as these are the values that I must not compromise in looking? None of that. Just a man. So it stems from that key question of why. The why is important. What do you need the sun for? So that you can also say you can, and that's all. I feel like there'll be a lot to ask questions about on Judgment Day. Of course, God is not man at the end of the day. Yeah, I'm honestly telling you, because it then creates another
Mm.
man whose single purpose is to repress other women and creates a cycle of repression by giving birth to other men and showing himself as this is how the man is supposed to behave. So while there is a case for genuinely wanting a specific kind of gender, there's a case to be made for it, because you may just have a passion. A woman may have given birth to 4 boys and she just wants another girl to, but there must be that fundamental why. Do not then bring
Need.
that
Yeah.
gender into the world and your sole purpose is you have now a bucket list, like a toy, like a doll that you
Mm.
then over pamper. And by
Achievements. I
virtue
don't
of
born
your,
boy.
correct, by virtue of those actions, you then create, you know, something that does not benefit society in any way. Anyway.
Mm. That's true. That's true. Anyway, like an end note to this, right? There's that scripture that says God giveth the ability to conceive. So at the end of the day, it's still God that can take away that ability and can give. If you look at Micah, the wife of David in the Bible, she despised David because he danced um, undignified in the presence of everybody because he was happy with God. You know, David was a special breed and he knew how to do things to please God. Even when he sins, the way we break down and wear ashes on his head, I'm sure God was this boy again. So David knew how to get to God, right? And that dance offering was that's where that song I will dance like David danced, dancing like David danced. And for Mikai to despise her own husband for dancing undignified, and God withhold the ability for her to bear children. In the whole of the Bible, she was one woman that was mentioned not to have children because she despised the praises that her husband gave to God. And also, we also read in the story of Rachel, and it says God gave Rachel the power to conceive. She wasn't initially, she did not, she was, Leah had several children before Rachel had Joseph, then Benjamin. So you say it was God that gives that ability. And which other story did I want to make reference to? Sarah too, you know. And reading the Bible, I just realized that it was when Abraham and Sarah, you know, got to Egypt, and they had planned they always had their witty little plan and say, hey, you're too beautiful, before they would kill me now and they carry you from my hand. Tell them you're my sister. Oh. And really, she accepted that she was Abraham's sister. And King, oh, fine girl, yeah, come now. And after it was when they were leaving Egypt, you know, all the things Pharaoh gave them. Hagar was one of the slaves that was gifted to Abraham and Sarah. And then with that, there are still witty little planning ability that two of them had. They still carry this poor Hagar. Slave girl where they give you, just go and cook and clean for these people. They use her to, you know, do their own plans. Let me give you my servant so that you will lay with her. You can have a son by her through me. Did you ask the servant? Did she accept? Did they write agreement? You know, the girl just became a pawn in their hands. And at the end of the day, from chapter 11, Genesis 11, where Abraham was called and left his father's house, to verse 18, where the angels finally visited Abraham and said, your wife would conceive, and she laughed, to the fulfillment of Isaac. It just goes to, it wasn't so many chapters, right? It just goes to show that if God has said it, God will do it. He only has the ability to grant conception. And no matter the hanky panky or the left and right movement you want to go, you get one place where they go pound something, make you drink. You get this woman where I know, now just to carry 3 stone, you go put 15 naira under any baby boy you see, you give her any baby. I've heard things, I've seen things, personal experiences. They said they will pound some herbs for the woman to drink. Under the mortar that she's using to pound the herbs, she should put 15 naira. After pounding the herbs, she should look for any beggar, a male child, because she was looking for a male child. That's why I remember this story. And at the end of the day, right, it's God that gives that ability. He can take it, he can give. And it's all for a purpose to be fulfilled. God will not bring, or he will not allow to bring a life to this world that he has no purpose for. Whether you want to use medicine or advancement or this one or that technology, if God doesn't have a purpose for a thing, he doesn't make it come to pass. That's the God that I know. And I just want people, whoever, wherever you are listening from, to know this and know peace. It is God that gives the ability for conception. And do not let your faith be shaken. If you are out there and you're trying to conceive and you've been trying so hard 5 years, 9 years, 10 years, no matter how long it is. How old was Abraham? 99. The promise came. The promise came. It might seem like God is late, but when he shows up, he actually is the latest. That's how he does his things. So that's my own end note, that it is God who gives that ability to bear children, and he can take it away if you begin to misuse it. So that's my own end note. Stay on God. Do not let your faith be shaken at the appointed time. And guess what? It doesn't go with human calendar. You might be counting 6 years, 7 years, 10 years. It is very different. His plans are very different from your own. Because when he shows up, he is in line. It is latest. You are as in he gives you beauty for ashes. That's the God that I know, that I serve. So whoever is listening to me out there and you are going through, this fertility journey, don't let your faith be shaken, and just stay on God. Don't give up. Do not give up. The lives, trials, and temptations, and the things you see and hear might, kind of spoil you to feel down and want to give up. But please hang in there. That's my word. Uncle T, any other last words before we end this podcast? I think Na has something to do. She had to run along.
Yeah, I'd strongly echo what you said. Um, we need to understand that we're people that God, he's going to, at the end of the day, it's his will, it's what he wants to do with us that will happen. And that means that while we're trusting God for a child, for a son, for a daughter, we need to understand that God loves us. He loves us more than we could ever love any child that he gives us. Any child that he even gives you, he loves that child more than you could ever love the child. Such is the nature of his love that the human love for each other or their own kids is also incomparable. So what that means is he understands what you're going through. The whole period where it looks like it's going to fall apart, where you're feeling like you're half a person and all the other emotions you're going through, he understands.
Yep.
When it is time for God to show up with that child, he will, and nothing will stop it. The very reason there have been people who have conceived without having wombs, these are life testimonies. It's not because of, so whatever the reason has been given for why it hasn't happened yet will be the very testimony when God does it. So
Yeah.
hold on. Hold on may sound like it's easy, but hold on when all you have to do is hold on. I like the story of Isaac that you said. Rebecca's situation got to the point where nothing else could then happen. It was beyond human intervention. A 100-year-old woman, how she even, it was unbelievable for her that, that how could this my husband is 100 years old. He cannot perform anymore. Whatever is coming out of him is even worse than blanks at this point, at this age, but, and she laughed.
Sarah
And
laugh.
guess what? Guess what? The son's name, Isaac, means laughter. It is to
Laughter.
nail
Yeah.
that very point that you laughed exactly. That point where it's unbelievable, where it looks like it cannot happen anymore. That is when, so that God can prove to you that it was only him. So hold on, he will come through.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Nah. Sorry you couldn't say goodbye properly today. And with that end note, we have come to the end of today's podcast. I hope whoever is listening to us over there, you have drawn some, level of faith and hope from this message today. Hang in there. It's not easy. We're not here to tell you, oh, it's easy, just hold on. No, we understand the struggles, and it can be a lot. It can be a lot. But just like Uncle T said, find a counselor or a mentor, that can put you people through. Somebody who might have gone through what you have gone through and they have their results now. So that it helps the weight easier. It helps the weight to be easier because you are seeing it that, oh, these people went through this and today they have their own child. Don't give up. Don't give up. Stand strong in your faith. Then and only then is that faith. That's the connection. That's the only thing God looks at when he decides to show up. Is that faith still there? Do they still trust that I can do this? And then he will do it. So I hope everybody will hold their Isaac and their Samuels very soon. And I pray that testimonies will span out from this episode. And until we
Amen.
come your way again on another very interesting topic on the Voice of the Marketplace, stay blessed and stay in charge. It's bye from me, Uncle T.
Bye. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.